We'll take a look at some of those names. Gil Capps, our buddy over at the Golf Channel, and he joins us with a look at Oakmont. The U.S. Open starts Thursday, and our coverage begins now on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Welcome back, Gil. How are you?
Hey, Mike Pete, I'm doing great. I'm not in first aid, but I feel like I could be just walking around this golf course. You feel like you've been beat up just walking and looking at it. You touched on it. This is a tough track, and the debate always is when we come here for any championship is this the toughest test in golf, the toughest golf course in the world, and it kind of depends on weather conditions. There are variables to that, but this one is definitely in the conversation, and I equate it. We remember back to last year and being at Chambers Bay outside Seattle, of course, that was a very new golf course. Of course, much different than we've seen in Opens in the past, with lots of humps and bumps and swells and tees being moved and browned out fairways and greens. And, it was a lot like the Players, I think, playing against the Harlem Globetrotters, right? Because that course, there was always a trick or a little turn here and there. Well, this year at the U.S. Open, it's like playing the 1990 Detroit Pistons. Or the going back in your area, the Broad Street, bullies. It is one tough track, and it will be really a survival test for these guys this week.
And to your point, Gil, two of the highest U.S. Open cuts since 1980 in Oakmont in 2007, that was plus 10, in 83, plus 9, and there's been some historic finishes. So you said you've walked the track, you've seen a few things, but anything jump out at you from like your last time at Oakmont to now? What's changed?
It's not any easier, is number one, since I was here in 2007. I think this year, the course seems to be even. It's hard to tell to play actually starts, but it's in such great condition. And I think Mike Davis of the USGA has this thing right where he wants it. And I think they're too prepared to adjust as conditions warrant. There's a chance of storms and rain starting tomorrow afternoon and into Thursday, maybe even Friday, so they can kind of adjust setup depending upon what kind of rain they get. But the problem with Oakmont is it's so demanding, not only tee to green, but once you get on these greens, which if you ask most people in the golf world, what's Oakmont known for, it's greens. And these greens, this golf course is built in 1903, and the greens are virtually unchanged since then. In fact, only one green has ever been changed, and that was the 8th green, the long par 3 that was moved about 50 yards back in the early 50s due to construction of the Pennsylvania Turnpike that cuts through the golf course. So these greens have been here for a long time. They're a strain of Poana, which last year we talked about Poana in a very negative light. This Poana that was sprouting up at Chambers Bay and causing the greens to be bumpy was completely different here. This is Poana, but it's Poana that's specific to Oakmont. It's actually cultivated here, and they can get these things down as fast as they want. And these greens too have so much slope on them. It's very hard to find a level spot on a lot of these greens, to putt from and to put hole locations. A lot of greens that slope away from you, like the first hole, which when you watch and you see guys, after the first hole, they're going to be 2 and 3 over. That's not unusual because this is the toughest opening hole in the game of golf, and a green which slopes severely front to back, and we've seen numerous catastrophes off the bat. And it's hard. It's hard when you play golf. I play golf. It's hard when you get off to a bad start and you double bogey, triple bogey the first hole, kind of pitching a bad mood and behind the 8 ball, and that happens a lot here at Oakmont.
Gil Capps from the Golf Channel is with us at the U.S. Open, which begins on Thursday. And by the way, the defending champ Jordan Spieth will tee off at 8:35 with Zach Johnson and Bryson DeChambeau, and of course the favorite for this year's tournament is Jason Day. And Jason Day, Rory McIlroy is second. But Jason Day is interesting in this one because over the last 5 years, Gil, only 6 players have made the cut in all 5 Opens, and Jason Day is 11 shots better than anyone else who made the cut in all 5. He's plus 11 combined. You wonder, is this course fit his style because he is the favorite?
If you had to put money on one guy, it would probably go to Jason Day, right? I mean, number one player in the world, he'll stay that way no matter what happens. This week, won 7 of his last 18 starts worldwide, and that's a Tiger-like run. I think we got spoiled all those years with Tiger and these streaks he went on, and didn't really fully appreciate how impressive those runs are till you see somebody else do it and look back and say, wow, that really was pretty special. So what Jason Day has been doing, he won the last big event at the Players' Championship, finished second twice in the U.S. Open as well in 11 and 13, and he has so much confidence. And the way he's hitting the ball off the tee, and he's one of these guys at Oakmont, Oakmont's not going to play really long. And so he has the advantage of, on a lot of holes, he can take a long iron. He has a 1 and a 2 iron in his bag as of now. It says he's probably going to hit driver on maybe 4 holes. And guys with confidence. I mean, and guys do with confidence to where if he doesn't get off to a very good start, and maybe he's kind of sloppy in one round, it's not going to bother him. So I do think he's probably the prohibitive favorite. But golf's a funny sport. The number one guy in the world doesn't win every week or win a majority of the events. But that said, the Oakmont, if you look back in its history and the winners here, mostly all great players. I mean, even last time, let's give Angel Cabrera his due when he won the 2007 Open here. He had the world number 1 and world number 3, just one shot behind them, and Tiger Woods and Jim Furyk, and they could have easily won. But it's the only golf course where you have the greats of Bobby Jones, Ben Hogan, and Jack Nicklaus having won here. So I think the stars have kind of aligned for seeing one of those top players in the world winning here. Hopefully Sunday night and not Monday.
Right, no playoff. Gil Capps is with us. Gil, how about the guy that many people thought blew it last year, Dustin Johnson? How do you assess his game right now and how he is coming into the U.S. Open this week?
Maybe not just golf's biggest enigma, right? Maybe sports' biggest enigma. I mean, if you go up and down the range, who has the most talent on tour? And it's Dustin Johnson. And I was actually having a conversation. Ian Baker Finch, who works for CBS, and he was coming up here to do a student outing today at Laurel Valley, and we were talking. And literally the second question he asked me was, "What do you think about Dustin Johnson this week?" I mean, is it something to where all it's going to take is a couple breaks going his way late on Sunday afternoon, and he's going to win one, and then they're just going to start rolling, kind of like they did for Phil Mickelson. You have to remember, Phil didn't win, his first major until the 2004 Masters, and he would have been 33 years old. And off the top of my head, you guys can correct me, I think Dustin is 31, 32 now, so he's right in that range. Or, Dustin's a guy that people kind of question what's up there, in his brain and mentally and emotionally, and being able to. That's a lot what major championships are. Completely different than regular tour events. It's handling that stress and the pressure you put on yourself down the wire, and can he do it? And only time will tell. And it'd be great to have him in the mix. And this is a course that I think would play to his hands if he's on.
Interesting name in this one, maybe not the biggest name, but Billy Horschel, who's 3 straight top 25s at the Open, and he returns this week for his shot at a 4th here. And here's a guy that I don't know that he would be rolling off the tip of tongues out there when you're talking about guys, but is he a guy that is intriguing on this course?
Billy's intriguing wherever he goes. Billy's a guy, he speaks his mind. He says whatever he's thinking. He's great for a quote. He's a great player. In addition to whatever pants he chooses to wear here this week, his famous octopus pants that he broke out a couple of years ago at Merriam. He was he was in contention. Look, a lot of these guys have the game to win. It's just the position that they're in and how they handle it. The one thing I would say with a guy like Billy is it takes me back to an old quote Jack Nicklaus said about the U.S. Open. When he got to the U.S. Open, he would hear half the players complaining about the rough. And Jack said, well, I can just tick those guys off. Those guys are complaining they're not going to win. There's another 25% of the guys, and they're complaining about the speed of the greens or, about the food in the locker room. I can take those guys off. So it gets down, where Jack thought, hey, I only have to beat like 20 players this week. And so maybe I would put Billy in that category because Billy can get, as he did last year, at Chambers Bay talking about the greens. Look, he's being honest. I get that, but I think sometimes that puts in your mind that kind of attitude and kind of complaining attitudes. It can kind of creep up when you're playing in frustrations. And the U.S. Open, among all tournaments in golf, you have to have a pretty steely focus and not be worried about conditions. Everybody's playing the same golf course, and you just have to do your job.
The hardest championship to win of all four majors, in my opinion. Gil Capps is with us talking U.S. Open. And if we are talking United States Open, Gil, we have to talk about Mr. Second Place, Phil Mickelson, trying to complete a career Grand Slam, a record 6 runner-up finishes at the U.S. Open. How do you assess Phil's game right now?
He played pretty well last week in Memphis. I will. Let me disagree with you because you said you think this is the hardest, and I think it's the easiest one to win. And specifically because of the point that I just make. And I think you look at Phil and his record, and that's one of the reasons I say it too, is because Phil would seem like the guy that this of all the events that Phil would have a chance to win, this would be he'd have no chance to win the U.S. Open the way his game is. Yet he's second place 6 times. And has a better record in this major than almost any, about equal to the Masters, but the Masters is no better than here. But still kind of takes that attitude. I mean, he takes that grind attitude, and one of the things that Phil said several years ago was, it surprises me too, but I think why I'm successful in the U.S. Open is I've learned how to manage par and knowing where to miss shots and where I can get up and down from. And that was his short game is, maybe the greatest of all time. And I think that always puts Phil in the mix if he can just kind of get it in the fairway and hit some greens and make a few putts and make a few birdies here and there. Because, look, it's the U.S. Open, but you still have to make birdies, and the stat shows that's one of the things that U.S. Open champions have most in common through the years are the guys who make the most birdies that week. And, it's the opposite that you would think. But birdies matter, and Phil's able to make them, and it would be a crowning achievement, to already stellar career if he were to win this week. And why not? I give him a pretty good chance of being competitive and maybe doing it. Even though time's running out, Phil's going to turn 46 here later in the week, and we all know that here in the modern era of golf, only 2 players older than 46 have ever won a major championship, and that was obviously Jack Nicklaus at the 86 Masters and Julius Barros back at the 1968 PGA.
Could have been at that senior tour up here in Philly last week.
The Constellation, yeah. Bernhard Langer.
Gil Capps from the Golf Channel here and the U.S. Open in Oakmont. We'll have full coverage here on the Sports Bash. Thank you, Gil.
Gentlemen, as always, thank you. Have a great rest of the week.